Good afternoon. Thank you both so much for coming. I have a couple of quick questions. So the first question I would like to ask, and I think this is more appropriate for Chairman Rhodes, is under the implementation of VETR, what has the state looked into to making sure that we do not have a chilling effect to small community solar projects or individual solar projects? Since we've gone away from the net metering, I know that there are many small-scale solar installers who are very worried that they will not be able to give assurances to adopters of what their rates will be.
So there's a two-part answer, if I could. We're running we're running quite an open process. We are issuing proposals, we call them white papers, that are meant to attract comment. This is a sophisticated set of market actors, and they're able to participate, very well in that process. So we hear from them. In terms of our approach to net metering, I would describe it as very careful. Right now, net metering remains in place for residential, remains in place for small commercial customers. We've created options for those customers if they choose to go take another rate structure, but it does remain in place. And we expect any movement on that to be careful and, in our word, gradualist. You mentioned a chilling effect. I just don't think we see that, but maybe this is where I turn it over to Alicia.
Sure. I mean, and appreciate absolutely the concern about whether consumers will be able to access solar energy going forward, which, as everything we've stated, is a clear part of the governor's priorities and a core part of what we're focused on. The growth that we're seeing in distributed solar is very, very strong. I understand that some developers have concerns with specific aspects of the policy design, but I want to reassure you and all the committee members that the pace of solar growth in New York State is very, very robust. As I mentioned, 2018 was a historic year, the largest year in history for new installations in New York State. It was about almost 25% higher than the next best year, which was 2017. In addition, if you look at the most recent data we have available, which was for the first 3 quarters of 2018 nationally, if you look at distributed solar, we were second in the nation in terms of new installations, and we see a huge pipeline of projects behind that. So we do feel that developers are advancing projects and able to communicate the value proposition that we know is there to customers, and we are seeing customers take them up on that.
Well, let me switch gears now to large-scale renewable energy. Right now, New York State produces about 25% of its electric energy from renewable sources, but about 80% of that is produced by hydroelectric. And my big question is, these numbers here that both of you presented, they seem great. But how many homes do we think that will actually be able to power through a 6,000 megawatt wind farm? And are we actually not being ambitious enough? That the problem here is that it sounds good to say that we will be completely non-carbon free in our energy grid by 2040, but what we're actually doing today, though large, is not nearly enough to get there, because I think back of the envelope, New York City, for instance, uses about 11,000 megawatts of energy on just an average day, and that's not a peak day. And so we need to actually be investing tremendously more, and that, because my time is running down, then dovetails into my next question, which is why, if the state is set on hitting a 2040 goal of an entirely carbon-free energy grid, are we investing money in the Williams pipeline or allowing for the Williams pipeline to take place? Why are we not just investing all of our money and resources right now into renewable energies? We have lots of plug-and-play natural gas plants. We still have quite a few nuclear plants that allow for energy to be produced and for businesses to be maintained. And why aren't we putting all of our energies into solar, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal right now? Because, again, as I said, though this seems ambitious, it does not actually seem enough to produce the kind of energy that New York City, Long Island, and the rest of the state needs.
If I may respond briefly? Thank you. I share your sense of urgency around our need to scale renewable energy aggressively in order to hit these targets and to combat the threats that we are facing from climate change. That's why we are so pleased with the track record of these procurements, which are not small. I understand your comment about the small percentages of wind and solar that are installed today, but just those first two procurements, that's 3,000 megawatts of new wind and solar we were able to put on contract. We'll be getting bids for 800 megawatts of offshore wind just next month. Those are not incremental steps. Those are measurable percentages of the state's load, and I would be happy to follow up and outline those numbers for you in greater detail. In addition, I just want to point out that in setting these 2040 goals, the governor has left no ambiguity that this transition will be led by renewable energy. 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind is an extraordinary commitment to new renewable energy. All the other states who have offshore wind targets combined are at 8,000 megawatts. 6,000 megawatts of distributed solar, and on and on. There is a clear plan for renewables to lead the way in this transition to 2040.
How many megawatts does